Welcome, everybody. My name is Colton from Zen2 Capital. Today I'm here with Brian Leeners, the CEO of Sonoran Desert Copper Corp. So, Brian, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Colton. Thanks for having us.
So, Brian, Sonoran is a copper company, and maybe you can go into a bit about your background in copper and why you're so hot on copper right now.
Yeah, our organization, we got into copper in the late 90s. We're well positioned for the last copper boom, which was in the 2000s, if you remember. We had some success specifically in southern Arizona and in Mexico, which is historically a significant copper producing region with some of the larger copper mines in the world. We actually took a project from a few drill holes. It was a copper porphyry in Michoacan, from a few drill holes to a bankable feasibility study.
So yeah, and so copper right now, obviously, it's in the it's in the news with EVs and that revolution. But why are you so hot on it right now?
Well, I mean, if you believe in the energy transition, and it's pretty difficult not to these days based on what's going on, copper's everywhere. And I know everyone says that, but if you think about it, it actually is. I mean, this energy transition is all about electricity, and the number one way to move electricity is with copper, and that's not going to change. There are some competitive materials, but they're way more expensive. So, copper is the conductor of electricity, and therefore it's literally intertwined into every aspect of alternative energy, of energy storage, of transmitting energy, et cetera, et cetera. So we're quite excited. We've always liked copper because it's got a massive industrial market on an annualized basis. And the number of new deposits going into production, historically is going like this. The old deposits are shrinking in their capability and running out of ore. So it's set up for a demand move and a supply crunch. So, that's when you want to be in a commodity, and that's when you get a bull market in a commodity.
Yeah, and you've got countries all over the world vowing to go electric in various different areas. So the copper boom is definitely incoming. Now, what about Mexico or Sonora do you like for copper right now?
Well, if you look at Mexico combined with the United States, that area is geologically called the Laramide Copper Porphyry District. So it runs through Arizona and into northern Mexico and a little south of northern Mexico. Sonora is really the state that contains most of Mexico's major copper deposits. Some of these are world class, and those assets are all copper porphyries. Mexico has incredible infrastructure in Sonora. The port of Guaymas is the largest copper export port for copper concentrate in Mexico. That's about 200 kilometers from our project. Hermosillo is about 150 kilometers from our project, and Hermosillo is the mining center of Sonora. So from a logistics perspective, from an asset perspective, that part of Mexico is literally the best part of Mexico from a copper perspective.
And I can imagine there's really good, team experts down there that you can, help out with the project as well.
Absolutely correct. Yeah, we tend to bring in Canadian and US talent at the top, but there is plentiful people with incredible skill sets to support those individuals in the task of moving these projects forward.
And getting to the company specifically, so you did do a rollback recently to create some value. Maybe you can talk about that and how that helps shareholders.
Yeah, our company was structurally defective, but asset good. And so from that perspective, when you're sitting in that situation, our company is owned by a core group of shareholders, generally speaking. That's not a large number. I know most of these people by their names. Obviously, we're distributed out to many other people that we don't know by name, but the considerable majority of the shares that are issued are sitting in a relatively small group of people. So what we decided to do, and those are buy and hold folks. So what we decided to do was roll back the stock so that we could remove that day-to-day flipping that occurs sort of sub 10 cents. And now we're just going through the cleanup process in that. And doing a little funding here. in order to get set up for the new year when our work programs will initiate.
Great. It sounds like you're setting up for success. Now let's get into the bread and butter, and that is the 4-H asset. Maybe you can go into what it is, why you're so excited. I know you've been talking about the size of it a lot. So what can you tell us about it?
Yeah, in the copper porphyry space, you're looking for four things actually. The first is size, right? So for a major copper company, you know, a BHP, RTZ, Freeport, to be interested in one of these assets, they have to be north of 500 million tons. The current resource at 4H is 650 million tons. You know, that's not a 43-101 resource, but it was done in 2008. So it's a relatively recent resource. And I think, you know, there's a fair degree of reliance on that resource relative to it being there. That resource represents, from a footprint perspective, about 25% of the overall porphyry footprint. And a substantial portion of the property is undrilled. So we have size. The second issue in the copper porphyry space is grade. Our moly grades are excellent. Copper moly and porphyries is usually a tandem economic situation. Our moly grades are good. Our copper grades are low. Our copper grades are generally speaking reflective of what you would see in the upper portions of a copper porphyry. And that's our view of the asset. There's been very few deep holes, and there's been almost no holes drilled into the central portion of the porphyry, which is where that higher grade copper should reside. So there's a testing process with the drill, but we're quite excited about our potential to increase the grade. And then we also have a soluble copper, which is copper that would run through an SXEW production scenario to complete 99.9 cathode copper. And that scenario at 4H is in parallel to the porphyry. So it is another situation at the asset which potentially represents a fairly quick path to production. People who understand these assets will understand that SXEW copper production is low capex, low opex, and you can move through that permitting and approval process in a relatively short period of time, and Mexico's a good location for that. And then the fourth thing that people look for is logistics, right? Do you have energy close by? Do you have transportation close by? Do you have water close by? And again, as I stated before, Sonora has all of those things, and in our particular area, we have all of those things. So I think we hit on all four, but what we really need to do here is we need to demonstrate that we have the grade to attract a major, while at the same time moving the soluble copper towards production. That will leverage any major that's interested in our asset to move quicker, because they're not going to want that asset to go into production, because the production from that soluble copper has the potential to actually capex the development of the balance of the asset. And anybody in that situation knows that that's a zero balance sheet situation. And all the majors are looking for that type of asset.
Well, Brian, I know you're an exceptionally organized leader and you are very plan oriented as well. So I'm sure you have some plans for the company. What can shareholders expect in the upcoming months?
Well, once we've got through this regulatory process, which unfortunately took longer than we expected, but it's done now. You know, we've moved through, we've done a new 43-101. We've brought a really good geology team to the table. One of the guys is an in-the-field geologist, really good. And the other guy is a porphyry doctor, and he's really good as well. So there's a series of programs that we need to go through, but the initial focus here is going to be to drive that soluble resource. We want to get that soluble resource to the point where it starts to initiate interest in what we're doing, because it represents an economic situation of substance. And once people realize that, they'll realize that the entry point at 5 million at the current market cap was a pretty good opportunity relative to where we should be in 12 months with that focus over the next 12 months.
Well, we're excited to see it, Brian, and we'll keep updated as this progresses. So thanks for coming on, and we'll chat soon.
Thanks, Colton. Again, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.